This week's podcast is sponsored by MPB, the simplest and safest way to sell photo and video kit. Free up funds from your kit bag and get paid fast. Find out how much MPB will pay you at mpb.com/sell.
Hello, nice to see you. Welcome along to the AVForums Podcast. We are live streaming yet again on Monday, the 11th of, I think it's April. I'm getting lost, but I do think it is the 11th of April. So welcome along. If you're joining us live, thank you very much for joining us live. It is appreciated. The chat window is open on YouTube. If you've got any questions, then get your questions in there. And if we like the look of them, we might answer some of them tonight. So get your questions in there in the chat window if you're watching live. And there's quite a few of you on there already. So thank you very much for joining us. If you're not joining us live, if you're listening to the audio only version, then the audio only version is one big podcast. So you've got the hardware first half, and then you'll have the movies second half. If you're watching us live, we should be finishing on the hardware around about 8 o'clock tonight. And then from 8:30 on the same channel, you might have to refresh your window, but on the same channel, we have the movies podcast. Tom and the movies team will be along at 8:30 this evening. If you're watching us live tonight and you fancy a little bit of movies chat, then get in there. If you are joining us live, then please, and you like what you're seeing, hit that like button. It really is important. It helps the channel get found. It helps people find us and join our cult. So we would appreciate it if you could click the like button. And of course, I'm joined, as always, on the hardware edition by Ed Selley, our hardware hi-fi reviewer. How would you describe yourself, Ed? Politely, clean.
Haunted meat sack. No, I do hi-fi mainly. I mean, there is actually a multi-channel review in the tank from me.
Right.
Thing, but
Okay.
No, mainly hi-fi, but smattering of music and some arguments. So yeah, that's what I do.
And we also have Ian Collen. Ian is our news writer. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
And wrapping up the team this week is our professional calibrator, Dr. Julian Scott. Hello, Julian.
Good evening.
Nice to see you again. We're going to talk calibration a little bit later on. We also have two very quick TV reviews to get through. I'm not going to go into them in any great detail. It's more an opportunity for you to ask some questions if you want to do that on the two TVs we're talking about tonight, which is the LG G2. That's the OLED Evo TV for this year. It's their gallery series. I've just finished the video review, and the written review went up about 3 hours ago, maybe 4 hours ago. So if you want to read that, then it is on the homepage at the moment. And the other TV I'm going to talk about, the review isn't written yet, and that is the Philips OLED+986, which is a bit of a strange one because of who it's aimed at, and I'll go through that a little bit more in detail when we come on to that. We've also got the news to get through, so Ian's going to tell us all about what's happening in the world of AV and hi-fi, and we'll all give our opinions on that as well. And then to wrap up on the podcast, on the hardware side of the podcast tonight, we're going to discuss our main subject, which is calibration based, and that is there a difference, or what is the difference between professional grading monitors and consumer TVs, and is there as big a gap as there used to be when it comes to what they see in the studio compared to what you can see at home? Can you actually see content as it was intended to be seen? Jules works with consumer TVs, but he also dips into studios and calibrates their monitors for them. So we've got his experience to ask a little bit later on. So yeah, that's everything that's coming up tonight. And of course, we've got Ed's album, vinyl, and playlist. If music is your thing,
If it isn't, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into that as well a little bit later on. Right, so let's get straight into things with what we've been up to. Ed, what have you been up to since the last podcast?
I've actually been on a spate of replanning some of my clothes. And I am beginning to realise the downside of TK Maxx. I mean, there are normal downsides of TK Maxx that you anticipate, that it's full of people and it's terrible. But where it really, really starts to be a bit of a pain in the ass is you buy something from TK Maxx for heavily discounted price. Think this is actually really nice. So I bought this hoodie a while back, and I was like, okay, do you know what? This is really nice. I might try and buy another one of these hoodies. And unfortunately, it's £144, which is more than I'm prepared to spend on something which I'm going to spill curry all over. So that's been annoying. I picked up a selection of t-shirts, mainly aimed at children, but in adult sizes. So that's quite handy. Bought a load of records, some of which I'm going to put in an appearance at the music recommendations bits. And I haven't bought any more trainers because I was cruelly outbid on not one, but 2 pairs of trainers on eBay. I just wasn't fast enough in the final minute. So I missed out on both, which is infuriating, but I will correct this in the fullness of time.
Ed, you're in your 40s now. You don't mind me asking your age, do you?
No, I'm 41.
Have you discovered Marks and Spencer's yet?
I'm aware of it. This is a standing joke. Essentially, if there was credible argument that I sit somewhere on the autistic spectrum, it probably is down to clothes, in so much as I do tend to be quite particular in what I buy. I haven't bought socks that are not made by Pringle. Well, I've been self-employed for 10 years now, and I haven't bought any that weren't made by Pringle in that time. I mean, I have no interest in golf. But if there wasn't golf, there would be no Pringle, and they make the best socks in the world.
So Pringle of Scotland, my hometown.
I know. Yes, you mentioned in the past. So no, it would require me to stop buying things with which I am very, very comfortable. And so I mean, I know Marks and Spencer's exist, but no, you know me. I buy t-shirts with either something offensive, incredibly obscure, or 45 years old on the front of it. I have knitwear which is shapeless and I like, and I have trousers which are shapeless that I like, and then 16 pairs of trainers. So
good.
That's how
priorities. Correct. Well, I discovered Marks and Spencer's this year.
Well,
it's the first place I've gone shopping where stuff actually fit me.
There's no judgment from this party.
You know me, short arms, short legs, but I can get things that fit me there. Well, Jules, what have you been up to?
Well, since I was last on the podcast, I had a beautiful week in Scotland. That was up in Fife. Remember that had the week with the beautiful weather. It was absolutely gorgeous. Not a ripple on the Firth of Forth. Sunny. It was stunning. And then been doing a lot of calibrations, you expect. So went to Space Studios in Manchester, calibrated Space Studios. It's one of the biggest studios in the country. And calibrated a grading monitor there, Flanders Scientific. And this past week, it's just been JVC, NZ8, N7, even an old X7000. And then spent time with Mike Turner from JVC Professional last week, spent a day with him. So it's been fun. Good.
Excellent. Ian, what have you been up to?
Well, without wanting to make it sound like all I do is sit around playing games all day, but I've weaned myself off Elden Ring for a break. But there was primarily to be playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which was done for review on the website. So if you want to know what I thought about it, have a look on there. But it's like the opposite of Tiny Tina's Elden Ring, because Elden Ring, I was getting killed all the time. It's tough, it's brutal. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, it's just silly, archaic, and you're basically the toughest guy in the room. So I've gone from dying repeatedly to just basically being that big boss guy walking into rooms, just laying waste to everybody in front of me in a pool of just spiraling numbers and carnage. And it's just been great fun. So it's been quite a refreshing kind of alternative to what I've been enduring for the past couple of months with Elden Ring.
That sounds quite wholesome.
Good stuff, yeah.
It's cathartic. It was, very therapeutic compared to the oppression of what I've been playing before. It's good fun.
Excellent. I've not got a lot to add there. I've just been really, really busy. As you'll see, lots of videos have been going up, reviews of the TVs. TV season has started, so I won't get much spare time between now and the summer with everything coming in. I did go and see a tribute act on Friday night at South Shields. They were a T-Rex tribute. They were actually really, really good. We just fancied some live music. We could get tickets for it, so we went along to that. And it was, I think they're called T-Rex to see or something like that. They were really good. It was a good night out, and it's a nice intimate little theatre in South Shields, so we did that. Not a lot else, to be honest with you, other than work, which we're going to talk about in a second. So let's get on with the show, and coming up next is hardware.
If you'd like to support the AVForums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AVForums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AVForums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
Right, so we got some new patrons. Thank you very much for your support. It really is appreciated. Anybody that joins the patron stuff and becomes a patron and donates on a monthly basis, it really is appreciated. It does help us expand what we're doing with the editorial, allows us to do more videos, make more podcasts, and generally do more reviews and other bits and pieces. So thank you very much to Michael Kennedy, Stephen Barnett, and Gavin Evans. Thank you very much for joining. We hope you enjoy being a patron here, and your support is appreciated. So thanks very much, guys. Right, let's move on. Let's find out what we can win. I'm going to pick on Jules this week. Jules, tell us what we can win in the current hardware competition.
Yeah, this sounds like a great prize. You can win an Atlas EOS Modular 4 power conditioning block, which is worth £900. I expected a woo there.
Solid.
And that's courtesy of Yorkshire AV. So head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter, and all competitions are open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK.
Excellent. Great prize there. Get entering into that. You never know. You've got to be in it to win it, as they say. So let's move on. We've got some news to get through now. And Ian, let's start with AV. What kind of news stories have been popping up on the website this week?
Well, since the last podcast, it's been a lot of kind of TV news, as you'd imagine. A lot of sort of pricing being announced. Just today, Sony dropped European pricing for its chunk of its range of Bravia XR TVs. So I won't go into that now, but that's just gone up onto the AV Forums website. So if you want to get an idea of roughly how things might cost in the UK, that's a good place to look.
Well, I didn't know that was coming, and I'm really interested, so I'm going to go and have a look. Keep talking.
Yeah, I would run through some of the prices for you, but with all the TVs that you're going to be talking about, it could get very confusing very quickly. But that does lead me into Samsung also announcing the prices for their Neo QLED 8K and 4K TVs as part of their recent unboxed presentation. Again, I won't go into all the specifics because you can find them all on the website, of course, including all the prices. And although shipping dates weren't announced as part of that, all pre-order incentives seem to expire on the 24th of April. So if you want a rough idea of when the launch window is going to be, that's a pretty good indicator. But basically, some of the key features that came out of the unboxed presentation: new wireless Dolby Atmos system, first for the company. That seems quite interesting, along with a new ultra slim soundbar, which will work alongside those TVs. So it's kind of quite a lot to digest, which I don't want to waste too much time with here. But if you're interested, by all means, jump onto the site. You could find all the information there.
Okay, good stuff. I've just had a look at the Sony stuff. The one I'm interested in is obviously the A95K, which is the QD OLED that everybody's interested in. So yeah, we're looking at 55-inch round about 2,600, and you're looking at about 3,400 for the 65-inch. So actually, that is a little bit less than what we were expecting them to be. I thought it'd be nearer the $5,000 mark for the 65 and sort of $4,000 for the 55. So yeah. Those aren't too bad prices, actually.
Obviously, just need to bear in mind that all I've done there is just converted euros.
So but yeah, that looks about right.
The UK
actually,
price could be a little bit higher.
I think the UK price is tomorrow. I think the embargo is tomorrow for the prices. So yeah, we'll update that story as soon as we have the actual UK prices. But yeah, that's looking around about where they should be for that, and that's going to be a popular TV this year. So we'll get onto TVs in a little bit. What else have we got to talk about news-wise?
Non-TV news. One thing that caught my eye was the new Klipsch reference speakers. Brought out 10 new models for its 2022 series, including a mixture of floor-standing speakers, bookshelf speakers, just normal standing speakers, plus elevated surround speakers, and a couple of powered subwoofers. Again, I could list prices and product names, but all of that's up on the website. But general headlines over the previous generation would be upgraded Dolby Atmos, advanced acoustics, and a pretty cool new look, I think. So it looks like
you
a pretty
usually
interesting
get really good bang for your buck from Klipsch and AV Sense. They're big, sensitive, easy to drive speakers, so they don't, they get a lot out of given input from an AV receiver, and it's usually a very, very capable sound. So if you are shopping around for a full size pair set, you could do an awful lot worse.
Yep. Good stuff. And then finally, AV wise, we've got a soundbar to talk about there.
Yeah, Devialet Dione 5.1.2 soundbar system, which is the first of its kind for the company. They're a French company, audio specialist, but this is their first soundbar. And it comes with some quite interesting proprietary technology from the company itself, including a cool little orb in the center of it, which houses a gyroscope that helps with the calibration. It also comes with the capacity to upscale stereo for a 3D audio experience. So it's a very interesting setup. One of the interesting things is the price point, which is £1,990, which is going to put it at the upper end of the spectrum when you compare it to the likes Sonos Arc or the recent Bowers and Wilkins Panorama 3 that were featured. So price-wise, it's at the higher end of the market, but it'll be interesting to see how it compares quality-wise. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to have a look and kind of have a pitch as to how it might compare.
No, not at the minute, but we do have one lined up for review. So,
that's good. I mean, Devialet have made some extraordinarily impressive products, and they have access to some technologies which have a non-hi-fi origin, which they have adapted for their requirements, which most other companies can't get anywhere near. So it could potentially be excellent. So, I don't know how big a market there is for 2K soundbars, but nevertheless, I anticipate it being reasonably solid, and it could actually wind up being excellent. So we'll see how we go.
Well, like I say, that is lined up for review. That should be coming in by hopefully one of our new reviewers who will reveal to you a little bit later on. But we've got somebody, we've actually got a couple of people coming in, and that is one of the products that's going to be featured. We also mentioned right at the top there the Samsung QLED pricing. I have a QN95B and the QN900B lined up for review. I'll let you know as soon as we get the samples. Well, you'll know that. It'll be all over our social channels, but those should be turning up, both of them together, within the next couple of weeks. So they're definitely coming up for review in the next few weeks. So let's move on to hi-fi. What have we got there, Ian?
Well, it's a couple of things which probably you guys might be better judged to talk about. So I'll just give you the headline features here. Both of them kind of evolve a touch of nostalgia, one of which being the Eclipse TD712Z Mark II loudspeaker, which is finally being retired after 18 years of service, which I'm sure some people will miss, and some people might be quite interested to see what the replacement will be.
Well, that's the main thing. They have announced already that there's going to be a replacement. I mean, obviously 18 years isn't a bad innings. No. In some regard, obviously there is a review of this speaker on the site if you fancy having a look at it, but it's about as large as Eclipse's technology can possibly work. So it'll be interesting to see what they've decided to do in terms of how much further they can take it. And if there's interest in me looking at it, I'd be delighted to do so. I won't lie. One of the reasons it was reviewed in the first place as relatively late in life and a bit specialist was it was right at the start of lockdown 1. So it was a case of who has a product, who can get it to me when none of the couriers are actually operating, and can it stay here for a bit of time? So that was why it was covered. But there is going to be more news and more stuff from Eclipse in due course as well. So we'll see how that goes. But it's a tremendous bit of kit, and missed in its own sense. But it's good to know that there's something coming along to replace it.
Okay, and just wrapping up then, Ian, turntable news.
Yeah. It's just whilst we're talking about 18 years from the Eclipse loudspeaker, it's actually 50 years since the Technics SL-1200 DJ turntable first came along. And to mark this notable milestone, companies released a range of bold new colours in a limited edition run.
I'm going.
And they've thrown in a few other, some nice other little unique touches in there, little LEDs, little kind of additions to the frame that you can add and play around with. And it's just like, a really cool thing. So if you're still into your turntables and you want a bit of a new look, there's some great options for you there.
Yep. I was a heavy user of the Mark II, the 1200
Seminal version.
Well, actually, the 1210 Mark II. I've been looking for a mint Mark II for the last maybe 10 years and finding one that hasn't been abused in some way, because they were professional products. They were used in professional environments and lager being spilt over them and scratches and all sorts. So actually finding a mint one was it was an impossible task. Actually, it told by Panasonic that they'd found one in a stockroom as they were doing a clear out, still boxed. And it went to somebody as a retirement present, which I thought was a nice touch. But yeah, getting a Mark II, almost impossible. So the Mark 7L, this is, it's not the same build quality. We're not talking about, this thing weighing a ton like the original Mark IIs and all the rest of it. I'm kind of at peace with this now.
I mean, to be clear, if you want one of those, the GR is built better than the original Mark II.
Yeah, but I don't want to spend 1,200 quid on one.
That's fair enough.
That's my point. So I think a Mark 7 is probably going to end up in my system, just as a throwback to remind me of a previous career, a good few years ago and a good few decades ago now. And just something that I can spin some vinyl in. It's going to sound good. They always have sounded decent. You can upgrade them, and there's some nice little upgrades that you can do to them. And the green color is really appealing to me. So I think I'm going to order one. That's what I'm saying here. And I never thought I'd be buying a turntable in 2022.
It is amusing. I mean, obviously, I bought one in December. I mean, I don't know if you've had odds on successive actual team purchases being record players.
Turntables, yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
There you go. Right, so that wraps up the news. Before we go on and talk about some hardware that we have had in for review, and we've also got Jules' subject to cover, which is tied into the TV. So before we get to that, there has been a donation. Ask Tom. You donated €5 via the super chat. Thank you very much, Tom. That really is appreciated. He said, "Hi all. Yeah, I've ordered a G2 65-inch for €3,099, including wall install. Good deal? ? QD OLED S95B. That's the Samsung. First impression, good. Look good. Haven't seen it yet. I don't think many people have actually seen the S95B. I think the only one that I have seen is Caleb at Digital Trends was invited along to Samsung US, and he had a look at one, which was under pretty strict conditions looking at his video. So I don't know when or if these are going to hit the UK. There's certainly, they seem to be pushing QLED as the flagship TV. There seems to be some kind of politics going on, and I'm not going to start guessing here because that'd be unfair of us to start guessing and making things up, or talking about stuff that we don't actually have any inside knowledge on. But there is something going on because QD OLED is not being pushed as much as you probably expect. It could just be the way that Samsung want to approach it. But the S95B, I don't know. Until we see one, I can't give you any advice on that, and it'd be unfair for me to do that. I can give you some advice on the G2, 65-inch G2. It's sitting behind me on the stand. It's getting packed up. It's going back tomorrow, but it is there. It's a very nice TV. There is a 4-degree lean back from the stand. You know what? I never notice it. As soon as you sit down and start watching anything on it, it's so slight. I just don't notice it. And if you've had a Sony TV in the past, one of the monolith TVs, they all have a slight lean back, as does this year's QD OLED. The way that the stand is designed, it will have a slight lean back as well. So if you don't like lean backs, flagship OLEDs are not your thing this year. You're going to have to get a Visa mount and mount it some other way. But yeah, it's a nice TV. It's a nice step up. It's using new materials, composite materials in its construction. It is a lot lighter this year than it was last year in the G1. So very quickly, just going through some of the highlights very, very quickly. There's a new Alpha 9 Gen 5 processor on board. It's actually a big deal. This new processor is a big deal. A lot of people mistaking OLED Evo as the panel. It's got nothing to do with the actual panel, the Evo. Evo is the name that they give the technology, which is the panel married to the processor. That is what OLED Evo is. So they could use WB or older panels in the TVs. They won't obviously on the G2. The G2 is the new panel, but the C2 will have a mix of panels this year. The reason that there is a mix of panels is just because that's what they're producing in different factories. It all comes down to the processing, according to LG. This is something that they made very clear in their presentations this year that was the case. The processor is a beauty. There's no doubt in it. It's powerful. It's doing a lot of really good things. And of course, we're still talking about a WRGB OLED here pushing out. I measured 911 nits on a 10% window. It's 163 on 100%. That's pretty significant in filmmaker mode. That's D65 filmmaker mode. That's not in vivid. That's not in natural or whatever normal or whatever they call it now. That is in filmmaker mode. That is an accurate preset, and you get 911 nits on a 10% window, which is excellent for an OLED. A lot of that is algorithm down to the processing. Another couple of things that will have really made a difference, and I've tried to get across in the reviews, and that is motion. Motion is so much better this year on the LG, thanks to this Gen 5 processor, as is the upscaling. Upscaling is super clean. Interlace signals, jaggy suppression is brilliant. It really is a big step up for LG, and it now brings them in line with Sony, in my opinion. I've seen a couple of questions, and I'll just look back through them if I can, but very quickly. So the A90J, it's been the main question is, how does it stack up, the G2 against the A90J? They both use heatsink technology. They both got powerful processors on board. Sony's always been known for their processing and motion and so on. I now think LG are up to that standard. Maybe not as good as Sony, but certainly a lot better than they used to be. In terms of brightness, I don't think there's much in it, to be honest. I haven't done a side-by-side. I would like to have done that, but getting hold of a A90J and 65-inch is not an easy thing, and putting them side-by-side. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that. However, going forward, the G2 will be a TV that hangs around here. It's going to be here for the year. It's going to be benchmarked. It's going to be compared to other TVs that come in. We are also going to go out and purchase some TVs this year. We haven't decided exactly which ones, but we're going to go and do that as well, so we can do some fair No, we need new TVs, Ed. So we're going to do fair comparisons and compare all the peers together this year. Not just measurements, but actually, what are they like to live with? Ergonomics, all the rest of it. What are the smart systems like? We're not just going to sit and look at test patterns, which is sometimes what we're accused of doing. I've never actually sat and watched test patterns, people. I use test patterns to measure, and then I sit and watch films. But for some reason, people on the internet think you sit and watch test patterns all day. So anyway, yeah, we're going to test them out properly. We're going to go and purchase some from retailers. We'll take some in from manufacturers. We'll really mix it up this year and just see, which TVs are the ones that you should go for. And another thing I just wanted to quickly mention was scoring, because it's come up again in the comments tonight. People don't put too much emphasis on scores. And the reason I keep pushing people to read the reviews is that's where you're going to get the information. There's no such thing as a perfect TV. There's no such thing as a perfect review scoring methodology. Read the review. We'll tell you what we think, what we've found, and all the rest of it. Then you decide if that fits your use case. That's the best way when it comes to reviews. We'll be as honest as we can be. Things like the pink tint to the side of the panel sitting off axis. I never sit off axis. I never see that. So for me, that wouldn't be a deal breaker. But it could absolutely kill it for you. But we're not going to mention it. We will mention it in the review, so you're aware of it. And then you make that decision. Is it a product that's going to fit you on the information that we've given you within the review? So yes, the scores are there. The scores need to be there, but don't put too much emphasis on the actual scores. Actually read the content if you can, or go and watch the videos. That's why we're doing more videos this year as well, because I do appreciate that not a lot of people have the time to sit and read 3,000 words. But you've maybe got 5 minutes to sit and watch a video. So yeah, that's why we're doing both formats this year. And very briefly, I'm also going to touch on the Philips very, very briefly. The review is coming up. It's a bit unusual, this TV, because it is based at the audio file. So this is Ed's TV, basically, if you listen to what Philips are saying. Basically, because it's got the Bowers & Wilkins speaker bar. It's not a sound bar, it's a speaker bar. It actually makes up the stand. There's an image on the screen now if you're watching us live. It's a beautiful TV. It's well designed. It's well built. Cable management is a nightmare because it has got cable management down the stand, but once it gets to the bottom of the stand, you've then got cables trailing out the back. So the other thing is you need really long cables, or your sources need to sit at the bottom of the stand. So it's one of these that looks great until you get into practice, and then it's like, well, actually, this is going to take a little bit of thinking in terms of installation. Picture quality, it's same as the 936. So it's the same panel, OLED plus panel. It will not do 4K 120. It cannot be updated to do 4K 120. If you need 4K 120, this is not the TV for you, but this is not how this TV is being marketed anyway. Like I say, this is being marketed towards somebody who appreciates good quality audio. And that's audio that's not surround sound or anything else, because it doesn't have any up-firing units in it. It does Atmos, but it doesn't have any up-firers or whatever. It's just a really nice quality speaker bar that will play music just as well as it will play the sound from the TV. And it's a Bowers & Wilkins product. And like I say, the panel is a 936. So apart from 4K 120, it does just about everything else. Picture quality really good. Good accuracy out of the box. It's got filmmaker mode on there. It's got Philips picture processing, which is really good as well. So another solid TV. Keep your eyes peeled for that review. That'll be coming soon as well. So very briefly, but then the reviews are up there. We'll get through some of your questions as well. And I'll go through the questions while Jules is going to get into his subject. Because one of the things LG did in their presentation this year, Jules, was tell everybody just how many of their consumer panels, so the G1 from last year and the C1 from last year, how many of them are actually used in professional environments. Now, they are not used, and I need to stress this, and this is the same for Panasonic and Sony and any other manufacturer that claims that their TVs are graded on. Critical grading is not done on these TVs. These TVs are for the client, and they are used in a professional environment. So when a client goes in to see how their film is looking, a lot of the time LG displays are used as well as Panasonic and Sony's, which some people might be surprised at. So, Jules, what's the difference between a grading monitor and a consumer TV?
Quite a bit. I mean, first off, the price. I mean, you've just mentioned that the G2 65-inch, €3,000, something like that. You know, on the set of a lot of these studios, you coming across something like a Sony PVM A170, a 17-inch RGB OLED monitor, £5,000, 17-inch, 1080p, SDR only, and no Netflix app. You know, so just, you know, do the maths and work out, well, how, you know, why is that $5,000 for 17 inches of SDR monitor, and why, you know, the other one is €3,000 for a 65-inch G2, and what's the difference in and why? I mean, to start off with, it goes down to the quality of the components that are going into that unit. If you're going to produce a TV that you're selling at £3,000, €3,000 at 65 inches, you may not be able to shop in Waitrose for those parts. You might be shopping in, you know, using supermarket, and you might be shopping in Sainsbury's for it. The quality of the components going into the grading monitor are just higher. You know, you got lower variance, lower tolerances, so you've got a much tighter unit from the very beginning. These will be factory calibrated as well. I mean, you know, properly factory calibrated. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't require calibration. ASO recommend every 200 to 300 hours that their monitors should be recalibrated. So regular recalibration, even for grading monitors that are coming with that tightness. And, you know, if you look at the internal controls in these grading monitors, you will find hardly anything of what we're familiar with in a consumer panel. So no multi-point gamma controls, no 18-point CMS, no sharpness controls, no noise reduction controls, none of this stuff. You'll probably find a 2-point white balance control. You might find a color temperature control, so you can go between D55, D65, etc. You would obviously brightness and contrast, and you'll also find a chroma control as well. Well, that's it. That's your lot. And if you compare that to the raft of, you go through any standard TV, I mean, it's just bewildering, isn't it? If you're not used to these things, seeing the multiplicity of controls in your consumer television. Often they're just there to make up for poor internal signal processing. There's a hell of a lot more variance in the consumer panel because of that, the higher tolerance of those parts going into it than there is on the grading panel, on the professional monitor. So that's, those are fundamental differences, and other things like dimming systems and all the rest of it as well. You won't find those too. So there is a very big difference in those displays. And yes, you're right. We are seeing lots and lots of LG OLEDs in these grading suites. These are used, as you say, for client monitors. You're not all going to cram around, a 17 or a 30-inch monitor to check on the progress of the movie. So they have a larger consumer display there, 77-inch, 65-inch C1 or something like that. I was down at a studio in London, the South Bank Centre, and they had about 4 of these C1s next to surrounding a grading monitor. So, and that's the challenge also is actually because they want the client displays to look as closely as possible, as close as possible to the grading monitor. So that's your reference point, and you're then trying to match those consumer displays to the grading monitor, but they would not grade on those the client panels. They're reviewing content on them. So some big differences price wise and in terms of the accuracy. And even though those grading monitors don't have all those 20-point white balance and the rest of them controls, just with, and it's quite incredible, it's a calibrated delight actually. If you just dial in your white point with that 2-point white balance controls, and often you don't even have to use the bias controls or the low end controls for that. If you just dial that in, then you measure your colors and it goes bish, bash, bosh, everything just pings into place perfectly. And it's a dream.
That's why you're paying big ticket prices, Jules, isn't it? Because these things they're designed to be reference points, and that's why they cost what they cost. When you consider what a consumer TV costs in comparison, it's great what we can get in terms of quality and all the rest of it. And I've seen it pop up again in the questions. They've been talking about the A90J being put up against an S95B by a channel called FOMO. And saying that one TV was calibrated to the old standard. A small percentage of people get their TVs calibrated. There is no such thing as an old standard.
What's the old standard?
There is the standard, and this is the type of misinformation that's out there. And unfortunately, the standards exist for a reason. And if you want to see things, and we've explained it quite a number of times now, so maybe we've got a little bit more work to do, because there is no such thing as an old standard. There is the standard. There's one for HD, there's one for PAL, there's one for HDR, and there's one for Dolby Vision. But they're all standards. They all say exactly what things should look like, and if your display doesn't cope with that and show how it should be done, then your display's not doing things properly. Right, so I've been going through the questions here. If people have got questions for Jules in terms of calibration, in terms of reference monitors and so on, then get the questions in. I am fighting against time tonight, trying to get as much done as we possibly can. Lots of questions about the S95B. I haven't seen that yet, so I can't answer. And I'll wait till I have seen something and not just a video on YouTube, because another thing, although we're doing videos on YouTube and we're showing you video reviews and all the rest of it, please don't judge picture quality on YouTube. That's like me phoning you up on the phone and playing £100,000 worth of hi-fi to you over a phone line. There's just no way you're going to be able to tell anything. I mean, somebody told me on my video today that there was Black Crush on a TV that I reviewed that didn't have Black Crush at all, but he was watching it on YouTube and it had Black Crush. Right, so again, that was another point I just wanted to quickly make there. Don't judge on. But yes, S95 is looking nice from Samsung. As soon as we can get our hands on one, we will. I think FOMO is a US channel. If that is the case, then that's why they've managed to get one. It is available in the States, not available in Europe yet. As soon as it is, we will get one in. I have seen the Sony, and I've heard a few comments again on our reviews and stuff this week saying, the Sony A95K is absolutely going to murder the G2 and all the rest of it. It's going to destroy it. Clearly, these people haven't seen the Sony. There's a lot of hype at the minute. People are expecting this thing to be a light cannon, to blow away WRGB OLED. I'm afraid you're going to be bitterly disappointed when you finally get to see QD OLED, if that is what you think is going to happen. Because I have seen the QD OLED against an A90J. Was it better in certain circumstances with certain things? Yes, it was. Mainly to do with color and color volume. In terms of brightness, they're the same. There is no major leap forward in terms of brightness. And we're talking about D65 calibrated modes. In terms of color volume, it's there. There is a difference, and that will make a difference. You're paying for that difference, but it will make a difference. But yes, don't read too much into it, and don't fall for the hype until you get to see one. And I can't stress that enough. It is good. It's a nice move forward for the technology, but this is not night and day, and it's certainly no Canon, light Canon. If that's what you're expecting, then you need to reel in your expectations.
Besides, I mean, in terms of all of the technological handovers over TV things going back, CRT to various and so on and so forth, the balance between the last gen of the old tech and the first gen of the new tech, it's never, I don't recall a particular time where it was ever, so radically different as to be, I mean, there were always advantages to the new tech, and it got better and better over time. But the first outing for most of these things was much the same, in performance terms. Once they were both correctly set up, the departing technology was able to usually keep it honest, and it took a couple of goes until it made a significant difference.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, don't fall for the internet hype. There's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of YouTube channels, again, people who haven't seen the tech, but they're reading what other people are saying, and if a few YouTubers say it, then seemingly it's the truth. Just keep an open mind. That's all I'm saying. And don't go in thinking these things are going to be light years ahead. They're not. They are going to be a nice little step forward, and they're going to be a nice little step forward if you can afford it, because these things are going to be a little bit more premium. Although I think the Samsung has come in at quite a reasonable price. So again, it'll be interesting to see if that has the heatsink. Again, I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to jump to conclusions there. But yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how Samsung handle moving over to OLED, a technology which for a long time they've badmouthed and tried to make out their QLED is better. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that one. Right, let's wrap up a little bit on the TVs there. Just finally, Jules, in terms of grading monitors and consumer TVs, is it worth somebody going out and spending a couple of tens of thousands on a grading monitor instead of a consumer TV?
Well, you won't get Netflix. Oh, you could stick your Apple TV up to it, couldn't you? You could attach something to that, but no, I mean, practically speaking, this is beyond most people, isn't it? You won't want to spend that kind of, £5,000 on a 17-inch monitor. That's not practical. But for grading purposes, that's what you absolutely have to have. You can't grade on a consumer level display. And I think people need to understand that, when we're complaining about, it's these TVs are so expensive, and you put it into context, and actually we're getting a terrific amount of technology. We've never had it so good, have we, really?
No. And, it was only 2010. I remember standing in front of a whole host of Panasonic executives pleading with them in a meeting to add calibration controls to their consumer TVs, and they didn't believe us back then that was a thing that consumers wanted. So we've come a long way, and the quality that you get now, you're getting 99% of the quality in the home now with a properly calibrated TV. Yeah. So somebody said that it was calibrated to the standard. So Buddy305 Love, thank you very much for that. Stop the Foam is the channel. Okay, I'll check it out and have a look at that. It's nice to get other opinions on tech, especially if people have been able to see it. Right. So we need to move on. And we've got another donation very quickly. So Zach Davis, thank you very much, Zach. He's donated $499 via the Super Chat. Thank you very much. Your support is appreciated. Would you wait for the 77 G2 or get a Sony A80J for $1,200 less, or even an 83C1 or G2 77? This is a huge purchase and want to make the right decision. First thing I'll say to you, Zach, is slow down, take your time. I know the C1 is the outgoing model, and so is the A80J, and that they are less. Just make sure you've done your homework. I can't tell you what to buy. I think that's my job to tell you what to buy. The G2 is an impressive TV. It's 77 inches. It's going to be an impressive TV. It has the peak brightness there. It has the new processor. It has the improved motion and so on. Although the Sony A80J is not as bright, and it certainly doesn't have the same dynamic range capabilities, it is a really nice looking picture. It's a Sony picture. It's not a Master Series TV. It's the one below that. For $1,200 less, that's a decision you need to make, whether that's something that you want to do. But if you want to make the right decision, do your homework. If you can get to see them, try and get to see them. And again, what is your use case? What is it that you're actually using it for? What kind of environment are you going to be using it in? What kind of content is it that you want to watch on the TVs and so on? Go on AVForums, ask the question on there, and if you at Phil Hinton, I'll come and give you a bit more of a pointer on there as well once we have a little bit more background. But yeah, that type of money and that type of screen size and so on, you want to make sure you're making the right choice. So yeah, do a little bit more research. Go on the forums. You can at Phil Hinton, and I'll come and give you some more pointers if that's what you need. But thanks very much for your donation, Zach. That really is appreciated. And thanks for everybody that's donated this week or in the last few weeks. It really is appreciated. It's great to have you on board as well if you're a patron. And please do consider it. Right, we're going to wrap up tonight, and we're going to head over to Ed to do that, because he's going to give us an album, vinyl, and playlist. And while he's doing that, I'm going to see if I missed any questions. So over to you, Ed.
Fair enough. Right. Okay. Separate album and vinyl this time round. The reason for that is twofold. Album of the I don't know if a week or fortnight, or album of the podcast is a French band called Kokomo, and the album is called Need Some Mo, more, but with an apostrophe on the end of it. If you've ever stood in the shower and thought, oh, I wonder what a French version of Royal Blood would sound like, well, behold, you now know, because it sounds like this. This album is an absolute riot. It just goes like the clappers from start to finish. Some of the best album art I've seen in a while as well. It's only moderately alarming. The album itself is obviously mostly original material, but it winds up with a tremendous cover of Last Night a DJ Saved My Life, which is different to any other version of Last Night a DJ Saved My Life that you would have heard to up until this point. This is on all the major streaming services, and one of the reasons it is the album of the week and not the vinyl release of the week is because even though I have a copy of it on vinyl, that wasn't easy to get hold of because it had to come in from France. It's only being sold in France, so you have to be mental like me to go to the effort of securing it on vinyl. That meant I could also talk about the vinyl release of the month, which is it's a main ticket release. It's unusual where I'm talking about something which stands a reasonable chance, I believe, of charting somewhere near the top. This is Wet Leg with Wet Leg. They appeared sort of summertime last year, basically, with Chaise Long, which is one of the catchiest singles of the last 10 years. It's music to oversteer to. There's been other singles since then trickled out, and then the album was released last Friday, and it's good. The reason why it is the vinyl release of the month, and I sort of say I'm saying this from the position of actually having on in front of me that I've listened to it, is Wet Leg assigned to Domino, who really amongst the major or larger record labels really have kept their standards up when it comes to the quality of their pressing. So this record, and I bought mine in, stupid yellow because I'm a child like that, but it is flat, which is not a given with records in 2022. It is extremely quiet. There is no unwanted noise. There's no grinding, no nothing. And it's beautifully packaged. So it's a rare example, and I do use the word rare deliberately because it's depressingly uncommon to find something which is a major popular release where the vinyl has been done by someone who, a group of people who do clearly care. And it's a nice way of owning it. It's not simply because it's bigger and it comes with nice art. It's a genuinely nice piece of sort of pressing work. So I'm going to cheat just very quickly because it is right next to my head. I would also like to give an honourable mention, if I can find what on earth I've done with it. Just another vinyl release month because it came out previous week as well. Was Ibibio Sound System. That they've released a couple of albums. This is their third, and it was mastered and produced by Hot Chip. And it's great fun. That's all on the major streaming services as well. A very, very good listen. So lots and lots of stuff was released. It's been, if you just, get onto the new releases on whichever streaming service you use, there's been some really great stuff. I mean, I haven't even touched on the Jack White, Calexico got something out. It's been a good couple of weeks for new music. Playlist is on Deezer, unusually. Who blow a bit hot and cold on these, but there is a new French touch. And I've just noticed actually it hasn't been updated for some time, but because Deezer is French, they're very good at French music. And I have gone on record in the past, and I will say so again, I think that the French are producing the best electronic and pop music in Europe at the moment, bar none. So there's some good, interesting stuff on there. There should be some interesting jump-offs for people, even though it hasn't been updated a little bit, but there should be some stuff which you should find interesting in there. If people need it, I can drop the link and the conversion link from conversion software into a different piece of software, into the forum thread, and you can drop it into the streaming service of your choice. So those are recommendations. There's still some loads of great music promised for 2022, so I'm hoping that there's going to be more random piles of records next to me over the course of some future podcasts.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Ed. The questions are still coming in. We'll very, very quickly get through some of these. Now, one question that keeps coming up quite a bit, not just on the chat tonight, but I've seen it on threads on the forums and also under our videos and so on, is how much brighter a TV is compared to another TV. And I think this is another misconception, Jules, of HDR and what HDR is all about, and how the eye works when it comes to brightness. And HDR was developed in a certain way. It was developed by Dolby and a couple of others. It's open source, HDR10. It was a gift to make that open source, and then obviously got the other flavors on top. But because we talk about peak brightness a lot of the times with these TVs and how bright is the panel and so on, I think there is this misconception, or certainly that people think that brightness is the be-all and end-all. But the way that the eye works, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you the question just on behalf of the viewers. What is it with the eye and how the eye works when it comes to brightness compared to a TV that absolutely nails just above black and excellent mid-tones? Where would you be putting your money in terms of?
We don't see light in a linear fashion. So if you measure up 1,000 nits, which is the HDR10 minimum standard, it's not twice as bright as 500 nits to the human eye. People are thinking like, well, this TV's 900 nits peak brightness, and that's only 800. And it sounds a lot, but actually it's not. You don't see that huge amount. And of course, most of that extra range over SDR is for specular highlights. TVs will be having tone mapping algorithms in there to pull down some of the bits that it can't quite do, and so there's not a huge difference between a TV that does 800 and does 900 nits visibly to the human eye. So I think, as AV geeks, we use a lot of hyperbole. You used the words earlier, this TV murders that TV. Actually, these are subtle differences between displays, and they're hard to pick up at the best of times.
Now, the beauty with HDR, and I think that this is the one area that people just forget, and they don't understand that. Not that they don't understand it, but it seems to get lost in the talk of peak brightness and all the rest of it, is we've always used a gamma which was suited to CRT in the past. Yep. But now with digital technology, we have a lot more gradational steps that we can take in the lower reaches of the image. True. Yeah. That our eyes are a lot more sensitive. Yep. If you think you're a hunter-gatherer, you're out in the dusk, do you want your eyes being able to tell, peak brightness, or do you want to see something that's hiding in the shadows?
Absolutely.
Our eyes are brilliant at lower in the scale.
Exactly.
And with HDR, we have so much more gradation between 0 and 100 nits than we ever have had.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I do this a little test sometimes with calibration clients. You can put up a white field and challenge them to name what percentage of white it is. And then you can put another one up of a different level. It's really hard to tell when it comes to white what level of white it is, whether it's 80%, 90%, 100%. Give them black, and they can tell that's black. Give them grey, that's not black. It's a lot easier to see, especially when your eyes have been adjusted in a dark room. What happens when you switch the light out, and instantly everything's really dark. 10 minutes later, you can see almost everything in the room. Our eyes adapt really well to the darkness. So you're absolutely right. Those subtle gradations out of black are really important to us and more obvious to us than those gradations near peak output.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when you're asking questions about the brightness and so on, it's an easy question to ask, but peak brightness is not the be all and end all. No. It's all about dynamic range, which is why OLED is so great, because you can have one pixel next to the other pixel. One's pure black, one's 100% white, and have that dynamic range that's there, the perceivable dynamic range. So yes, there are lots of questions, is this TV brighter than that TV? Oh, that TV does 980 nits, that one does 880 nits. You're not going to be able to tell the difference, people. It's more about how that TV's tone mapping, the technology behind it, the picture processing, what's it actually doing with the information that is being given, and how is that then displaying it back? It's why Dolby Vision exists. Dolby Vision exists to basically put 5 litres of liquid into a 2-litre container. That's what it's doing. That's what tone mapping is. It's trying to fit this huge dynamic range into what your TV's capable of. And yes, your TV might be able to do 900 nits, and it has that dynamic range, which is great. But where it's making the real difference is in the low reaches of that image. And if it can bring out mid-level detail, it gives the image so much more depth. If you can see just above black, immediately that image looks amazing compared to another display which doesn't have the contrast or doesn't have the dynamic range, but it might be able to do 1500 nits. But if it hasn't got dynamic range and hasn't got the contrast to take advantage of that, it's useless. So again, it's a point that I think needs to be made, especially when we're getting into all reviews now measure peak brightness, and you get a lot of people, and it's the human thing to do is to compare numbers. All I'm saying is don't take too much into account when it comes to peak brightness levels. There's lots more to an HDR image, a good HDR image, that you need to take into account. So hopefully that answers a number of questions I've seen tonight, not only tonight, but also on other videos that we've done. I do appreciate it has been TV heavy tonight, people, but those have been the questions coming in. I see there's plenty of you watching live at the minute, so thank you very much for spending your time with us on a Monday evening. If you have enjoyed the podcast, if you do like what we're doing here and you want to see more of it, then please, it is quite important if you could give the video a like. It really would be appreciated. Or better still, if you want to subscribe to the channel, then you're never missing out on any of the content that we're producing. We're going to be doing lots more comparison reviews, video reviews, not just the TVs, but some other products here and there as well. And basically, we want to engage with you. You tell us what you want in terms of content. What is the big talking point for you at the minute? Let us know, and we'll look into it. We've got access to manufacturers, we've got access to industry professionals. We can get colorists in, we can get directors of photography in, we can get TV engineers in. So you tell us what it is that the burning question is for you guys at the minute, and we'll do what we can through the next year to make that happen and to bring them onto the Hardware Podcast. And don't forget, tonight the Movies Podcast is along in about half an hour at 8:30. So you will need to refresh your YouTube. Just go back to the main homepage and then click on the Movies Podcast, and it should start automatically when the stream goes live. So if you're interested in movies, 4K discs, HDR transfers, all that kind of thing, the guys, Tom and the guys will be talking about that tonight. So remember that is coming along. And of course, future podcasts, future live streams. The next one we've got coming up in April is the 25th. So not Easter weekend, which is next weekend, but the following Monday, the 25th of April. You can join us for another live stream, hardware and movies on that evening. And then in May, it's always the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month. So that'll be the 9th of May and the 23rd of May. So that's what we've got coming up there. All I need to do is thank the guys tonight, Ed, Jules, and Ian. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
And if you've enjoyed the podcast, like I say, please give it a like, give the channel a subscribe if you want to see more of our stuff. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark avforums.com for all our latest reviews, news, and videos. And if you are listening a little bit later in the week to the extended version of the podcast and you want to give us a 5-star rating, then please do that. If the service that you use allows it, then please do leave us a rating on there. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening tonight, and please join the Movies guys in about half an hour for the Movies Podcast. Good night.